Recently, I've been reading a lot of Tattva Bodha, and I think it's important to share what I've learned from there, really, and share the important teachings, the important guidance, and why it's important to have a foundation when it comes to studying non-duality. It's very easy for a lot of people to have one little experience and suddenly think they're enlightened, and it's incredibly annoying when people do that, because at the end of the day stops it gives a false impression of what non-duality is. And non-duality is all about understanding who you are, understanding what you are, understanding what your essential nature is, and then what is life. So it's kind of annoying when people who come across these non-dual teachings suddenly find that they're enlightened just because they kind of understand something on a very superficial level. Like, for example, just by saying that what is, or what simply is, that isn't non-duality. Non-duality is a lot deeper than that, and a lot more it requires a lot more work than just perceiving things in that regard. So so yeah, it's a lot deeper than what people portray it to be, especially here on YouTube. They kind of think that it's very easy to just say buzzwords, and they have a certain terminology that they utilize, and that doesn't help in the grand scheme of things. So but yes, if you're here live on YouTube, write a comment, write your questions, and what I will do in a few minutes is go over some of the teachings in Tattva Bodha, which is a foundational text in Advaita Vedanta that was written by Adi Shankaraji. So it's very important in terms of understanding. And if we are to really grasp the depth of understanding what the Atma is, we need to really understand the foundation. The whole point of Tattva Bodha is actually just to get us to understand what we really are and understand what we are not. And it goes into incredible detail to ensure that we understand this. So, for example, it will go into why you're not the body and why you're not the mind. It will give a deep analysis into that. So we'll go into that in a little bit. Hey, Sia, nice to see you on TikTok. Anyone on TikTok, join my YouTube page. The link is in my bio to my YouTube channel. Join me there. Put your comments on there. And thank you for the likes. So yeah, I'm using StreamYard today. I don't know if I'm going to continue using it for now, but I think when I do more reaction videos, live reaction videos, I probably will do it on StreamYard. But until then, I think being live on YouTube is kind of fine. So yeah. And there's a reason why I say, what am I, instead of like, who am I? When we say, who am I, we can denote a personality, and we may swap one personality for another. So it may seem pious that we call ourselves seekers, or we call ourselves enlightened beings. But that, again, is just another label, another distraction. So when we say, what am I, we're actually getting rid of the persona. We're getting rid of the notion that it is a person. And that's why it's really important that when we are going deep into non-duality, Advaita, is to make sure that we understand that the question is what, not who. Because again, if we say who, then, for example, a lot of people uh, perceive that because Aham Brahmasmi is roughly translated as I am God, someone will turn around and say, well, that's my new name, I am God. But that's not true. You're just adding one persona to another persona, just adding layers. So that's not the deep teachings of um, of Adi Shankaraji. So I see that we. Oh, thank you, um, thank you, Sue. Um, I'm not a Vaishnava. This is a comment on TikTok. No, I'm very much Advaita Vedanta, and again, when it comes to Vishist Advaita by Ramanujaji, I respect it, but it's not. It still doesn't go to the complete picture like uh, Advaita does, in my opinion. I understand its importance. I understand the depth that is in Vishist Advaita, and I get it, but it doesn't hit the mark for me. It doesn't really go to the next level that's required. For example, eventually, if everything is going to lead to moksha mukti, why go through a long way of pretending there's a difference between you and Brahman? Just go straight to Brahman, and you get rid of, you reduce your journey by half almost. Um, so that's my opinion. Um, thank you, thank you. So nice to see you, Sammy. Um, so yes, so that's my opinion on Vishishta Advaita. But I respect all the gurus that are on there, because at least as far as I know, some of the gurus who follow that sampradaya, they're really nice, they're really kind, they don't really have an ego. But again, the other issue that I have with Vishishta Advaita is that it seems to only utilize Krishna as the supreme deity. In my opinion, there shouldn't be one supreme deity. They should all be seen as the same. Whatever one can get you to the highest, that should be considered the highest for you. But to just say it's just Krishna is wrong, in my opinion. It's not. It's not ideal. Um, the whole point of spiritual enlightenment is to utilize tools that can help you get to the highest towards um, moksha mukti, towards liberation. If we're not going to go there, then and if you're going to go round and round in circles just because it's an interesting game to play of being spiritual, then that's not enough, in my opinion. We need to do much more than playing games of philosophy. It has to be something you deeply want to practice and deeply want to discover for yourself. So those on TikTok, you don't know, but the title of this video or on YouTube is "What Am I and Who Am I?" It's kind of a play on words, because I don't really want to answer the question of who am I. And I feel that question is sometimes misunderstood. Uh, I think when Ramana Maharishi utilized this word this word as who am I think the real translation probably would have been closer to what am I rather than who am I. But even with his understanding of the personality, he wouldn't have put Brahman as a personality or even yourself as a personality. He will see that you yourself are Brahman. So therefore, the question of who is simple. So yeah, I hope I answered your question, Chunder Talk, and thank you. It was a beautiful question. But yeah, if you're on YouTube, give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, and also write a comment. Let me know your views. Tell me, what do you think about these spiritual questions that are asked, like, what am I? Who am I? Self inquiry. Has it helped you? Has self inquiry helped you understand what your real self is? Does it help you in any way? Does it actually get you away from knowing who you are? Like, you can play devil's advocate with yourself. um so Sorry, just blocking someone on um TikTok. Hello, have you read I Am That? Yes, I have read I Am That by Nisargadatta. I don't think it's his best book, if I'm honest. There's one that I read. The name, The Nectar of Immortality. That one is a very good book, in my opinion, by Nisargadatta Maharaj. And I would say that is probably one that you want to read. Nectar of Immortality. The other one that I would say is pretty good, but I Am That um, is a good spiritual text, in my opinion. I mean, Sam Harris approves of it, so it's pretty good. But the only thing I will add is that some of the translations, I think, when they utilize the word like consciousness or awareness, I may not agree with that. Because I don't think it's being precise, but those are minor details. The major thing is the message. And Nisargadatta Maharaj, I deeply respect, I deeply honor as someone who really understood the real essence of Advaita Vedanta, because a lot of people, and it goes to show, when you follow a sampradaya but you kind of mold it in your own way like he did, it has so many benefits. Now, in my opinion, I wish there was more of that today. And also, what I really liked about him and Ramana Maharishi, they had bhakti elements, they had elements of devotion, and without devotion you kind of take the life out of Advaita, really. So that's why when we see a lot of these neo Advaitas on YouTube, these young people who um, are taking on this message of non-duality, or their pseudo non-duality, what's happening is they're taking the devotion element out, and when you take the devotional element out, you miss so much from there. Taoism is very similar to Advaita. I actually do agree. One of the first lines in the Tao Te Ching is, the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. That says everything about what Nirgun Brahman is. You can't really give Nirgun Brahman a name. Nirgun Brahman is just a word that points to the truth, that points to that, the Tattvam Asi, the Tattva. That's all it's doing. So it's the same thing, really. With Nirgun Brahman, you can't really name it anything. It refuses to be called anything. It refuses to be named or titled or anything like that. So, um, um, hey, yeah, no problem, no problem. We're all good. We're all good. So yes, um, so yeah, so Taoism is pretty cool. Um, I love. I think I've read the Tao Te Ching 4 or 5 times, and I've read different translations. And whenever I get a chance to read a different translation, I always do. I think it's really important that we read as much as we can, and we assimilate and digest different aspects of wisdom as much as possible. But yeah, I Am That is pretty cool. Taoism is really cool. Advaita is really cool. These are non-dual paths. Hey, hello, G. So my friend SammyVada, who's an excellent TikToker, do check out his lives if you're on the if you're in the States or Canada. He makes excellent content in general, but his wisdom is what makes his lives so interesting. And he has interesting conversations with people from all walks of life, and that is Advaita too, because Advaita is about you know uniting everyone. It's not actually about dividing anyone by saying my philosophy is better or anything like that. In fact, it's just another way of explaining how we can live a meaningful life essentially as the self. So yeah, what time will you be live on? I'll try and come on live um and watch your live for a bit. So yeah, so so yeah, so yes, so the what am I is the essential question. The what am I is the most important question. How can I know who am I? Or what am I? What am I really made of? Am I made of this body? Am I made of the senses? Is whatever my senses project to me, is it true? Is it real? Is it essential? 8 Central, so that'd be 9. Okay, I should be able to join at this time. Thank you. What is the, am I this body that is, that has a heart or different organs, a brain, um, all these things. Now, according to Tattva Bodha, according to Adi Shankaraji, whatever can change, whatever can change is not what you are. Yeah, I love it too. In fact, I won't take credit for this. This "What am I" was actually coined by Yamsocks, Liam. Yamsocks, again, another excellent TikToker. I interviewed him. Well, we did the Bearded Mystic Conversations the other day. His conversations thing will be up next week. So yeah, take a look at his content. Is amazing. But he did a talk at Nishji's Sangha once, and this is what he said. The question isn't who am I, but what am I? And I totally agree, because who am I refers to the ego so much, the personal identity. And so going back to that, what am I? Adi Shankaraji says that whatever you are has to be changeless if it is to be true, if it is to be the real thing. And what tends to happen is, if you look at what we need to do more of, is actually analyze, well, what is changing all the time within me? My thoughts change, my emotions change, my senses change. My senses keep changing what they want to be attached to. My desires change. My body keeps changing. It's renewed, every couple of years. It's nothing is still, nothing changes. But there is one thing which is referred to as the Atma. That is changeless. That is what we call awareness, and that is formless. And hence, the main, what I refer to as Nirgun Brahman is really formless awareness. That this awareness is formless. It's beyond any image, beyond any notion of any description, any label. The moment you label it, it vomits out that label. It does not take in the label. This formless awareness just is always there. Now, the best way to do this is think about your own day to day. Prior to watching this YouTube video, whatever you were doing previously, you have been aware of it. You have been watching it. You have been observing it. This observer has not changed. So when you woke up in the morning, when you brushed your teeth, to taking a shower, to going to work or going to school, that awareness, that observer has not changed. And you're able to recall it because ultimately you are that awareness. Now, what Tattva Bodha does as an excellent text is it gets rid of the notion of personhood. In fact, you go beyond personhood and you understand that you are the Tattva. The Tattva meaning this immortal self, this Brahman, this formless awareness. Let me get my iPad. I'll be with you in 1 second. We'll go through it. We're going to go through the Tattva Bodha today. This is exciting stuff. Like this is the stuff that dreams are made of, literally. Okay. Let me. You can see the light switch, but I need to. Okay. And you know what we will do another time is look at what Maya is and look at how Maya has been misunderstood. We'll definitely do that because a lot of people, they look down upon Maya, but without Maya, you wouldn't be able to function in this world. You wouldn't be able to enjoy this world. And you can see Maya as something as essentially unreal. You don't have to see it as a complete illusion. Right, Tattva Bodha. Here we go. So, but I would say if anyone is interested in Advaita Vedanta, it is really important that you do read the foundational text or read Adi Shankaraji's works to really understand, this deep wisdom. So, here we go. So, the first question is, so he says, I bow down to my Guru Govind Bada, the king among yogis, who has given wisdom to me. For the benefit of those who seek liberation, I compose Tattva Bodha, or elemental knowledge of reality. So this work is basically written to help those who are seeking liberation. What's interesting here is, you see, first of all, he bows down to his guru and he gives that respect. And he gives the intention of what he wants to achieve by this, that is for the benefit of those who seek liberation. So if you're not after liberation, this is not really going to help you as much. This is what I was talking about. Other spiritual paths, they go here and there. Yes. Yes, sure. We can do that, bro. What I'll do is once I'm done with this, I'll come on this and we'll discuss those things. But yes, so the whole point of this is to understand that you are seeking liberation, that you're after liberation. If you're not, like I mentioned, other paths, they take you here and there. But with Advaita, it wants to take you straight to the truth, straight to liberation. So the second, so it carries on. For those who are equipped with the four merits to attain liberation, I will now tell the thought process to know the fundamental reality. Again, look at the words that are clearly defining the thought process to know the fundamental reality. It has to begin with the intellect. It will expand more on this later, but the whole point is you have to use your mind to understand this fundamental reality before you can understand that you are this fundamental reality. So there are four prerequisites to have before we know the reality and become eternally free. So we have to know and practice them first. And after that, there is a definite set of ideas along which we need to direct our thought process to know the reality. So what are those four prerequisites? What are those four things that we need? And the merits are discretion between permanent and impermanent objects. So permanent would be and impermanent would be nitya and anitya, I think, in terms of the Sanskrit words. And then there's dispassion, or what you could say detachment. Then the third one is practice of the six wealths, like peace, etc. And those will be elaborated later on. And then the D, which is an intention to liberate. So the whole point is you need those four things. Those 4 prerequisites are required for us to find that liberation is important for us. So, what is the right way of thinking, or discretion, or discernment? What is the discernment between permanent, or the difference between permanent and impermanent objects? Brahman, or supreme reality alone, is eternal. Everything else apart from it is ephemeral or transient. This alone is the right discernment about permanent and impermanent. So basically, only this formless awareness is eternal. Everything else that we see and perceive has a life form, has a life time, has um, it belongs to time and space, but time and space are not permanent. Therefore, if it's not permanent, it's not that supreme reality. So this is how we can know things specifically. So a note is given that a seeker should label everything he comes across either as permanent or transient or relative. The objects which do not pass the test of time or eternity, for example, our home, our relatives, our body itself, should not be important for that person. When we see various vases of clay or pots of clay, it is the clay which he should or we should focus on, and not the breakable shapes or forms. Just like a goldsmith does not care about the shape or type of jewelry, but it's more important about the gold. So, for example, uh, regardless of, like I have a gold chain, um, you could have a gold ring, you could have a gold bracelet, you could have gold earrings. Now, all that is made up of one substance, which is eternally true for that, which is gold. But all those other things, if you melt this chain, if you melt the ring, if you melt the earring or the bracelet, what does it end up becoming? Gold. Hi, Guy. Nice to meet you. So yes, so that's the essential essence of what's being said here. So permanent and impermanent. Same thing with clay pots. So there may be different types of jugs, ornaments, bowls, plates that are made out of clay, but it's made up of that one substance called clay. So that's what we need to remember and remind ourselves of. So essentially, we are all awareness or consciousness, but we go through this these changing forms of body, mind, thoughts, emotions. All those things are basically impermanent. So it carries on to say, so we should constantly move our focus to something which lasts longer, and finally that which is permanent or does not change with time. So if an object cannot last, we should not aspire for it. Some sense of non-attachment or detachment is needed to become free from it. So what is detachment? So one thing I want to mention here is that it may be that we hold on to ideas that may help us to feel that we are beyond, that we're not just our body, or we're not just our or as quick as short lasting as a desire, as a thought, much more than that. So we'll carry on. So what is dispassion or detachment? Lack of desire in enjoying the result of our actions in this world and the next is termed as detachment. So lack of desire in enjoying the result of our actions. Again, this is very much like what we've been listening to the Bhagavad Gita recently. It's been talking about these elements, and what we just need to be aware of is that we don't really care about the results of our actions. We do something, is done, move on. In fact, just move to the next action, because there's no point contemplating upon the results. So, for example, if I'm constantly going to be worried about something I did, I will not be living. I'll be constantly in the thought process of thinking of, oh, what will happen? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? Do I need, you constantly, you're never able to detach yourself. And not only that, but say if something comes to your benefit, you'll feel that you're greater than others. If something does not go to your benefit, you'll feel offended, hurt, dissatisfied. So all those things will occur. And then what happens? We just don't feel happy. And that's why. And if we get praised and we enjoy that praise, it brings on the ego. And when we have an ego, we know the result of what happens accordingly. So an explanation is given here. We are bound to objects in the proportion of our attachment towards them. If we are not free from this petty attraction, how can we long for ultimate freedom? So if I'm constantly going to be desiring minor things, I'm not really going to desire liberation. I'm going to be thinking about the shorter things. I'll be thinking about getting the better house, a better car, the better job, better salary, that I'm doing better than the next door neighbors, things like that, or doing better than other members in my family or friend circle, or I should get the best result in the class, things like that. Those are very small desires that we hold. And these do not allow us, if we're constantly thinking about them, we won't be able to live an enlightened life. We will not be able to live a life that's at least striving for liberation. So how can we want ultimate freedom if we cannot be free from these, petty attachment to the desires? If I'm constantly staying awake at night, thinking about that car that I don't have, or the house that I don't have, or the exam result that I don't have, or anything where it can keep you up at night, it's not worth it. For example, if I became worried all the time about the numbers I get on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram or whatever, I'll never be able to sleep at night. But I'm able to get sound sleep because you just have to let go of everything you do. You do your action, move on. Tomorrow is a new day. If you get to see tomorrow, so just be happy and just enjoy what you're doing. Don't get bogged down by the results. So that's what I mean. So if you want to be free, you have to be free from everything. So detachment from all sense objects should be practiced. This way we can control our sense organs as well as the mind. So for example, I use this all the time in my podcast. Things like if I see that chocolate cake, my eyes get attracted to the chocolate cake. It keeps looking at that chocolate cake and wants it. I have to be able to say to my with the mind, control the sense organ by saying, calm down. It's just a chocolate cake. Because the eyes have got attracted to it and it's been received by the brain will ensure that my taste buds start wanting that chocolate cake. So, and not even that, but like say if someone cuts through that chocolate cake, cuts a slice, I'll be able to hear that as well, and that will invigorate my senses, and therefore my mind has now got attracted to that chocolate cake and now is constantly thinking about that. But what we should be able to do is detach ourselves and see whether we should eat the chocolate cake or not. If I've already eaten and it's not going to give me any benefit, I could be diabetic, so maybe it's not good for me to have that chocolate cake. But I do love chocolate cake. It's one of my weaknesses. But yeah, anyway. And Guy says, at best, nice things will only keep us happy for the rest of our lives. Exactly. And like it mentions in the Tattva Bodha, you want to think about what's after this life too. So absolutely right. The nice things help us. And there's nothing wrong with having the nice things. Enjoy them. Like nothing wrong with it. I think you should aim for nice things. But like I said, it shouldn't keep you up at night, basically. It shouldn't make you stressed out. You know, if you get it, great. If you don't, keep working for it, but don't get disturbed by it. I don't even like chocolate cake, and now I want some. This is what happens. Um, you know, um, my whenever I go to my mother-in-law's, I'm always like, I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no to food. I'm gonna say no to not eating anymore. And the moment she brings out like some ice cream, I never say no. I'm always saying yeah. So before I used to do a good job of it. Been slacking recently, so I need to work on my detachment and and my discernment on knowing what is permanent and impermanent. That transient nature of ice cream should not consume me, and I should be able to keep myself healthy in that regard. Um, so so yes, so yeah, I like the word non-attachment as well. I like the word non-attachment. So, and this is a nice last line about detachment or non-attachment. And if we don't control our mind, it starts controlling us. So really, our mind will start trolling us, literally. Like we have to really understand our mind. It's so our mind. One, it's the most beautiful thing ever. Like, don't get me wrong, our mind is beautiful, but at the same time, it is so cunning, and it can bring you down in a second. All your spirit, I have heard stories of people who were really spiritual, really, you know, who were even considered enlightened. I've heard stories about how they have fallen from grace, you could say. They have fallen from what they used to be or what they were. And it's all because they allow the mind to start controlling them. And the funny thing is, I think yesterday we talked about the subtle ego, like especially with spirituality. You don't even recognize that your mind is controlling you. That's how crazy it gets and how crazy it is. So don't get fooled by the mind. Remember, you control the mind. This awareness controls the mind, not the other way around. But so the next question that's asked is, what habits should we follow regularly to help us on the path of self-knowledge? Very good. So what are those qualifications of six wealth, like peace, etc.? So those six things are serenity, so peace; self-control. Well, if the chocolate cake is there, are we in self-control or not? Neutrality. So are we neutral in situations? So for example, I mentioned earlier, if you're praised or criticized, are you neutral at that time, or are you do you get a bigger ego when you're praised, and then you feel upset and sad and I'm forgetting the word, it's not coming to my mind. When you inferior, do you feel inferior when you're criticized? Like that is what I mean. So when you're neutral, it doesn't matter whether you're praised or criticized. It doesn't mean that you won't get the first hit. Like, yes, you know, someone criticizes you or praises you, you will register it. But the point is, after you've registered it, how you act from that, how you respond to that. So if you respond by being neutral, by saying, you know what, it's okay, they're praising the body and mind, but they're not praising, but it's the Atma that they're praising, not me, not this body called Rahul. If they criticize me, they're not criticizing the supreme Atma or Brahman. They're criticizing Rahul, the body. Therefore, you become neutral. Tolerance. Tolerance is an interesting one, because how many, and I would say not tolerance, I would actually use the word acceptance. When you accept others completely, or accept other labels completely. When people use the word tolerance, I feel like you're tolerating something. That means that internally there may be a dislike, but with acceptance, there is no like or dislike. It's, it is as it is. Therefore, you automatically accept. Um, but because I think human beings have become so, um, they become so because they become so fragile about themselves. The word tolerance is probably right, because people can't tolerate someone from a different religion, different caste, different color, different nationality, different political ideologies. Like, nobody is able to, well, not nobody, many are not able to tolerate the other. But if we, for example, I don't agree with some of the political views of the Republican Party. In fact, I probably don't agree with anything on the Republican Party, but I don't tolerate them. I accept that that's what their values are. That's it. I can't do anything, but I'm not going to, by, by hating them, I'm not going to get anything. And also, prior to that, there's neutrality. So being neutral, I have to be neutral. But that doesn't mean that you don't act. Like, a lot of people will say, "Oh, if you're neutral, that means you won't act." No, it's not that. Um, we'll carry on to, we'll go into a bit more what that means. Then there's reverence. So reverence for the teachings, reverence for your guru, reverence for other people, reverence for your family, your friends, everyone. Like, just reverence towards life. And then the sixth one, clarity. This is the most important thing, clarity. And clarity is the one that tells you whether to act upon something or not. So if there is a time when, for example, it's Krishna's clarity to say to Arjuna at that time that you must fight in this war. But prior to that moment, his clarity was probably telling Arjun, do not fight yet, do not fight yet. Then only when things got to a point where there was no other alternative did Krishna say with clarity that now is the time to fight. So this is what we mean by clarity. Clarity is the one that tells you whether to perform an action or not. It gives you that intellect, that wisdom. But prior to that, it goes through these five things: serenity, self-control, neutrality, tolerance slash acceptance, reverence. Those things are needed prior to clarity. So yes, so let me look at the let me just go over this one thing, and then I'll look at the comments. As wealth helps us in living and maintaining a comfortable life, these habits ensure our lasting and swift progress towards our goal. So we have to make these our habits, make peace and serenity a habit, make self-control a habit. I mean, you see the chocolate cake, control yourself, being neutral, having tolerance or acceptance, reverence, and clarity. We need to make those habits of ours. Um, so, um, bro, I think, you know what? Come and join me on YouTube. You should come and join me on YouTube. I will send you a link, and you can actually go onto StreamYard. So, Guy, tolerance gets easier when I realize I am them too. Yes. Let me see. How do I share? No, I don't want to share a screen. Oh, here we go. Okay, so Um, so I've just put in a link, bro, on the comments in YouTube. Go on to that, and you should be able to come on. Let me put some. I don't even like chocolate cake. This is Guy saying that. But this is one thing I like to say. Tolerance gets easier when I realize I am them too. I really like that. When you realize that you are this one, that you are this self, you are this one. Um, totally agree. Um, let me see. So let me see if there's any other comments. Okay. Oh, nice. So, Oka said to engage with the material asat and recognize its illusionary nature towards true Satchitananda. That's it. That is Advaita Vedanta completely. Here we go.
Hello.
Hello. Yes.
This is crazy. This is really cool. Yeah, no, I really love what you're saying. When you talk about the Sat and the Asat, right? The real and the unreal. In other words, what is permanent and what is temporary. And Sat is always, and we know that in this world of change, in this dialectics, the study of change, we know that it's all illusionary.
Yes.
Everything that changes is illusionary, and no one thing, no form. And I think it goes a little more, it's more abstract than just like material, or matter. It's forms of thing, right? This idea of nama rupa, right? Form and name. And so when we think about what exists in form, we say all of that is temporary, anicca, or in the Pali, anicca. So anitya or anicca, this temporary, we say is illusionary. And I think this is why the three main deities within Hinduism represent this nature of change. We would say Brahma is not just creation, like creation of things. He doesn't do this and produce things, but he represents, and his essence, the essence of Brahma, is there when things come into form, when new form is created. And
Yes.
when things stay in that form temporarily, we say Vishnu's essence, or representation, is there. And then when things fall out of form, in anything, in any sort of form, we talk about molecules forming ice. The creation of ice is Brahma. The preservation of that ice and the melting of ice, or the evaporation of that ice, is the representation of Shiva. And that sort of Trimurti is the quintessential essence of change. All three of them together represent change. I think that's, to me, that's what it's all about. Um, this new other idea that I was thinking about and have been reflecting on is this knowing that Atma is within here, and Atma equals Brahman. That consciousness is one. It's one, and it pervades the entire universe. Um, Knowing this, it gives me implications of what is free will. And in this live, we were talking about ways of non-attachment and detachment. Knowing that eating a chocolate cake, it's a thing that you must resist with focus in the mind and awareness within the mind. And so what does that say about free will? When we make these things, it sort of presupposes that we can make choices. And I think we can. In this Maya, we can make choices. But I think that when we zoom out of it and we sort of think about what's in the afterlife, I think the enlightened and the Atma knows within us that this is all just a lila, a divine play, a script. And a script that we don't really, because we're all just walking egos. It's all covered up with this ego, with this face, with this name. And so in that, I can make the choices to lend itself to freeing my own ego. And that's what awareness is all about. Oh, being aware of what really resides here, and what is the true path at the end of this life is to release this Atma. Let this Atma be released out into the universe. And so, Bhaja Govindam, praying to God, bhakti, and then just recognizing these truths and practicing towards these truths through meditation, through dhyana, are ways that we can arrive there. But I think that, the way I kind of explained it to someone is that when you think about like any story, I've been watching Star Wars because Obi-Wan came out. Y'all should watch Obi-Wan.
I need
But
to watch it. Yeah.
it's so good. But, I think about, those are stories, right? Those are stories written by directors like George Lucas or whatever, and so on and so forth. In those stories, I asked you, does Obi-Wan, does Anakin Skywalker, do they have choices in the stories? We would say yes, of course. They're making choices all the time. And an interesting story is a story in which characters are making choices.
Mhm.
And so we would say that they have free will within those stories. But when we zoom out, we know that it's just a script. It's just actors playing characters in a script, in a movie, in a TV show, and that they're just following this divine play. And the Atma within us, it's the actor. The ego being the character, it's playing this character right here, and the Atma is the actor, and this Atma is being puppeted by Brahman. And so, the Atma is sort of in essence the strings, and so we're sort of playing this divine character in this divine play, and I'm playing a character. We're sort of, and someone said in my chat, we are method actors who have taken it too far. We're too
Mm.
in too deep. And so, but the Atma knows that this is all just a play. And so it doesn't take it seriously. The Atma knows we're just actors. And so when end of this life, I sort of say that the ego is, it sort of dissolves, right? It literally dissolves, it goes away. And so the Atma, if it's attaching itself to an ego, it will be reborn as such. But if it recognizes that and it lives a life so that its buddhi is against the ego and is towards the Brahman, then it will, you get what you want at the end of the day. If you want to be part of the ego, you will be reborn as an ego due to your lifestyle of material, of asat. And if you want to pursue sat your whole life and your mind is directed towards sat, it will get what it wants and be part of Brahman. And
Mm.
so that's the way I look at it. And so when people ask me, is there free will? Yeah, of course, in this Maya, of course, my character is making choices. But the Atma knows it's just a play. It knows it's just an actor. And so and that's the way I sort of some thoughts I kind of put together. I wanted to share it with you.
Yeah,
But
that's nice, man. That's interesting. I kind of agree with you actually when you take so for example, we think we're making choices, that we have free will. Then when you zoom out a little, then you kind of realize that yeah, there's so many choices are influencing your own choice. So how much of it
yeah,
really is your own? Um
right.
and even
And,
to the point
and
sorry.
mhm. Okay, I was gonna say, go ahead. You can finish, and I'll say
Yeah, I was
something.
just gonna say one point, which was I read Malcolm Gladwell's book called Blink, and he says there
Okay.
that before you even think you've made a choice, like the moment you say you've made a choice, actually before that you've already done the choice, you've already made up
Yeah.
your mind, but you pretend to go through all this thinking, but really it's you've already made that choice beforehand.
Right. And I think this also ties into our understanding of dharma, right? Dharma is our sort of path that we are sort of, crafting for ourselves. And in the Advaita tradition, it is part of our dharma at the end of the day to liberate, to release everything, to become sannyasi at the end of your life, or whenever. But you're achieving moksha, and that's part of your dharma. So how do we
Mhm.
reconcile this? And what I would say is that in this Maya we're making choices, but also that doesn't discount, because the common thing I get is why does karma exist, right? Why do you say you should do anything? It's all a script. But no, in this dharma education is still a thing. We talk about all the things influencing our choices, sure, but education is influencing our choices. When you
Yes.
tell someone to do it something, we can see how their behaviors may change upon education. And so it doesn't discount the need for jnanam, for knowledge, for knowing, to teach others, to have philosophical discussions, to develop an ethos, to debate your ethos, to have a podcast debating your ethos and understanding the nature of reality. So all of these things are, I say, are still important, because that is the dharma itself, is the philosophites. And I would say that if I am lending myself to talking about this, if you're lending yourself to have a podcast and educating people and connecting with so many people, then it's already part of the divine script, because it's been written already, and this is proof of it. So,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, that was the other part I was gonna say. But yeah, I think that that's the thoughts I was gonna say. And so and what the act, and so when we talk about Krishna, Bala Krishna, is all about, and he's the representation of this. Another aspect, side note, is that I think over the course of being Advaita, my focus has always been on Brahman, 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 and I think Brahman is very important, obviously the most important, and Nirguna. But as of recently, I've been developing an appreciation for devas and deities. What do they represent? Shiva Shakti
Mm,
sort of represents unity and opposites. The Trimurti represent the dialectics of Asat. And
mhm,
then another aspect is Balakrishna. And Balakrishna's whole story is that he's playing pranks. He steals butter, he steals clothes, he makes Yashoda pass out when he opens his mouth. He just loves playing pranks on people. And the reason why is that he represents the nature of Leela, the divine play.
mm,
That none of this is real because he's realized he is Atma, right? Krishna represents Brahman in that scenario, the Brahman meeting the Atma. So in that, he knows it's just a play. He's an actor. He's breaking the fourth wall at all times.
yeah,
He's a character who's breaking the fourth wall at all times because he knows he's just in a play. And that's his lesson to us as a kid, is to not take life too seriously. Don't sweat the small stuff. Don't get too attached to material because it's not real. You're just in a play. You're just in a movie and a TV show. And if you knew that you were in a TV show, you truly knew it in your heart, how would you act? You would not take life so seriously.
yeah,
It's just a
true,
movie.
true, true. I agree. I agree. I like that. And yeah, I do agree with you. Although I'm completely, as you know, a Nirgum Brahman type of guy, pure
Sure,
awareness
sure,
is the
sure.
only thing. But um, with that, you've got to understand there is a shared being, and that's where I think the devas come in. That they are the same. They are Brahman itself. They're not
Yeah,
separate. I think so. It also depends on how someone sees them, but yes, I do agree with you. The devas need to be supported. The elements
yeah,
of nature need our. We need to give back, as Sri
yeah.
Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita very clearly. We need to give back to nature. We can't have this take relationship.
Right.
Um,
But
but
what I say is that the devas, they don't need to be venerated and prayed and dressed
right,
and everything like that. But their stories and their symbology need to be understood, in my opinion. And I think you
yeah,
can arrive there without it, but they do so much to help us.
yes,
I looked up in Kalima. Kalima represents the destruction of the ego and the consequential resurrection of the ego. What does that
yes,
mean? And Kalima's symbology sort of represents she destroys the ego and rebuilds it anew. She breaks you down and builds you back up in her image so that you recognize to humble yourself and recognize the illusionary nature of the world. And then, Brahma, Shiva, Vishnu. I know. And so I'm in this phase right now, but I think the devas are something I'm learning to appreciate a lot more as of recently. And they help me recognize not just what Brahman is, but what is the philosophy of Brahman? What is philosophy
mm,
of the Nirguna? And what does it mean? What is it trying to teach us? And so these devas have stories, have symbols to them to help us educate on the nature of things. Um, and even, we talk about Thakurji and, Nirmala 6, not just Nirmala 6, but even in Guru Granth Sahib, they have contemplation on Krishna, on all the deities,
they
you
do.
know?
Yeah,
Um, and there's a reason for that because they still find value in understanding them. So Guru Nanak says, wherever I see Brahman, the Vaheguru, I see
mm,
the union of Shiva and Shakti.
mm,
And so why is he saying that? No idol worshiping? Of course not. But they're saying that there's still, to understand Brahman, they have to understand what Shiva is, what Shakti is, and what symbology, what philosophy do they represent. And so
yes.
we see that Sikhs are still, or Sikh gurus continue to do that, and the Dasam Granth they continue to do that. So, anyways, my little tidbit, but
No, but it's essential. It's essential
yeah,
to know and
yeah,
understand. And I'm with you. I'm with you
yeah,
on that point. I
yeah.
think sometimes this is one reason why I do like. I don't know if you ever got into what Nishji does a lot. Um, Nishta Krish.
Okay,
Um,
yeah,
he,
yeah,
he but he does tantra classes, but real tantra, not like
yeah. Whatever, white thunder,
well, yeah,
whatever thunder.
he's going through the texts really well. He does like a Kalima puja. I think there's one day where he devotes to that, where he even he goes over I forgot the name of the text for Devi, but he goes through that, and then obviously he has his Advaita, which he really loves. He goes hard on that, but
Yeah,
I really like the fact that he's got this diversity, which shows the whole spectrum, I think, of Advaita actually, because it's not
right.
separate. I don't think it's separate. Like
No,
when
of
he
course
talks
not.
about Shiva, it's not separate. When he's talking about um, the Devi, it's not separate, you know. So I think I like that. I
Yeah.
like that he does that. I think it's unique. And I think we're all getting to that point where we're discussing these things. And yeah, I'm with you, man. Like I think it's
Yeah.
important that we do that. And like you said, like these stories in the Puranas, they are there to take us to the ultimate. They're not to be taken literally, but we need to understand, like you said, the metaphors, the symbology,
Yeah.
the narrative,
The
of,
narrative. Yes.
and understand what it's showing and what it's highlighting. And you know, it's and that's important. And we have to also remember not everyone's going to get the dry philosophy of Advaita either.
Yeah.
You know, it's not dry, but it can be perceived dry when you compare it to the narratives. You know, the
Sure.
narratives are like magnum opuses, right? It's a Sanjay Leela Bansali movie.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be really grandeur and everything. Whilst
Yeah.
Advaita is like a minimalist movie, the
Yeah.
most
Right.
simple
Exactly.
thing.
Exactly.
You know,
And yeah.
you
I
go,
think that you can start at Advaita and even work your way out into understanding
yes,
those things
yes,
too. It may give some clarity to it, and then
yeah.
or vice versa. Um,
You
but
know,
yeah,
like usually, whenever I do these lives or when I do my podcast, I'm always wearing that t-shirt with Shiva on there. There's a reason why I do that. There's a reason behind the symbol
yeah,
and the importance of the symbol and what it represents. Because
yeah,
really, it's representing the formless, you know. And I know
yeah,
what it's representing.
yeah.
Um,
Right.
but yeah, people who love the image, they see that and they get attracted to it.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so
And
yeah.
they are. I don't know. The developments, historical developments from like they have their place, but as a philosophy and what they represent and the many names and the epithets that were devoted to these deities, they are truly and beautifully, and I can't say perfect because that's a too much of an absolute that I can say, but they are in many ways almost perfectly crafted to serve an understanding of Brahman to some degree, because
Yeah.
knowing Brahman is not enough, right? What is, Brahman doesn't tell you anything about what is ego, what does ego does feel like, what is the
Mm,
process feel like. And some people, the path to moksha might be a painful one. It might
mm.
cause a lot of suffering,
Yes.
and Buddha certainly suffered on that path. And
Yes.
so, there's so much nuance when it comes to Advaita, and the small details that, the sort of I wish someone told me when you get there, and maybe you learn the hard way, maybe you don't, but but recognizing and representing deities teach you so much about that path and what that path means. Hanuman represents bhakti, the complete devotion, the surrendering of your consciousness, your ego, your will to someone else.
Mm,
Dasa means slave, servant. And so and then so things like that are represented, and that's it. Even for Advaitas, that whole concept is very, very important. um and even for people born in their various paths of life, I seem to always come back to Hanuman. When I look at the devas, it always comes back to service and devotion for me. Guy.
and you know what? I would even say that Advaita without the service and devotion is not complete. Like
Yeah.
just intellectually understanding is not enough because
Yeah.
there's enough of the intellect. You know, yesterday I was discussing about this, the Neo Advaita scene, the pseudo non-duality scene, where it's just all intellect with no heart. You need the heart. You need the meaning. You
Yeah.
need the life. And I agree. Like these deities, or even if we just call them symbols, they are the ones that bring meaning into that very abstract, yet hard to understand Brahman, or the formless or the awareness. So yeah, I really like that.
Good.
That yeah.
Yeah.
So you were saying before that.
um I can't remember, but just the various, Hanuman. Oh yeah, I was talking about just
Oh, oh, I think it's muted. Now I can hear you. There we go. I think Takuji is on Sing Jazz. If you come onto YouTube, I can answer your questions there. Yes, we'll wait for Sammy to come back on. Um, but yeah, let's look at this other comment. Non-dualist separating out the heart. Ironic. It is very ironic, but it really does happen. It's crazy. Um, so here we go. Let's.
Can you see me? Oh, here it is.
Yes,
I got a
yes.
call,
we
so I
definitely-
had to like kind of take care of that. Sorry,
No
but
problem.
yeah, like Ramachandra, Lord Ram, sort of represents like doing, still following an ethos. And there's that little conflict, right? Mentioned the Bhagavad Gita, and even in sixth scriptures, like how do you play the sort of desire for attachment versus being there for your people.
Mhm.
Some people look at moksha as a selfish goal because you're sort of leaving your family, you're leaving people behind.
Yeah.
You're not there to fulfill a dharam. And so that also is a nuance in the path towards liberation that isn't always discussed among Advaita circles. Is it okay? And so these are things I think, anyway, deities represents is that they really do try to philosophize that line between selfish, I say that in quotes, moksha,
Mhm.
and material, not material, but being there for people when people are suffering because of material reasons or
Yeah.
external factors, is what can you do to help, because
Yeah.
maybe their dharma is different.
I would say, I mean, I have mentioned it, I think, on my podcast that
Hmm.
when it comes to non-duality or Advaita, it's not about running away from home or taking sannyas. Sannyas, in fact, is about Osho used to say it's about removing your ego. That's what sannyas
Yeah.
is. You're giving up your ego, and that's all it is. So, but obviously, people have taken it to another level, and there's a path of sannyas that's been cultivated. But for me, I think you can completely live a non-dual life uh, in the world and enjoy it. Like I love being married. I think it's one of the best things that have ever happened to me. In fact, it's helped me more
Right.
spiritually than I would say if I lived alone. Um, so, um,
Hmm. Yeah.
so there's, you know, being
Yeah.
going to work, interacting with people, doing this. I mean, if I thought it's all about just moksha and liberation just for myself, there's one thing, yes, because you're traveling with other people, yes, the journey may be a little bit slower. It may be, but it's more fulfilling because one, other people are witnessing your growth. That's a good thing because you can inspire them indirectly. And the other thing is they're showing you the mirror of where you're going wrong and where you
Yeah.
completely are the ego. They are the perfect teachers in that regard. If I mess up, I can trust that my wife will tell me, Rahul, you really messed up there. Or Rahul, you shouldn't have said this. This wasn't right. Then I can look back and say, yeah, you're right here. Maybe I shouldn't have done it this way. But yeah, if people think liberation is just a selfish thing and it's about giving up everyone else and everything in life, I think everything always comes back to you no matter what. You can run away from it, but it'll come back. But it may come
Yeah.
back mentally, which will be even worse. Because, for example, um, let me use this example of say if someone goes and becomes a monk because they're after liberation and they give up their family. Now, that person may end up becoming one of the best monks ever. But say when he's on the deathbed, is he thinking about his family that he abandoned for the sake of liberation? So was he really free
Yeah.
if it comes back to you
Right.
later on? And
Yeah.
this is why I think living a spiritual life and integrating family life or material life is so much important. And actually, that's non-duality. Seeing no duality in both. In fact, um,
Yeah.
if you see a duality in it, then that's where the problem is. The ego.
The ego that sees itself as intellectual can mess with heart when involved in jnana. That is true,
Yeah,
and I think I fall
yeah,
into that trap. I think I probably fall into that trap. But that's part of like that's part of the process. That's part of the
yeah.
process. So I'm not like too hard on myself. But I think that as of recently, I have to credit Ramadan. When I fasted on Ramadan, all of these things sort of came to the surface, and my desire to truly work on my ego and work on my bhakti and my discipline. I think discipline is such a good not only indicator but practice on your ego. That no matter how well you're
Mm.
feeling, you're doing things to a routine. You're waking up, no matter how tired you are. Like, I don't want to go to work. I don't want to do this. I don't want to get up and do your daily, your you know, your little super bottom tasks. But you're doing things. Sort of in the words of Krishna, you're not putting feeling to your actions. There's no labor. There's no fruit to your action. You are. What's the word? Help me out. I don't. What is the what am I trying to say? Krishna talks about like not having attachment to your actions.
To the outcome of your actions. Yeah.
Yeah, the outcome. Yeah, you do things selflessly, and I think discipline is such a really good method to understand where you're at in that,
Mhm.
and then how you can improve, and sticking to discipline.
I agree.
Discipline on your diet, discipline on your attachment, disciplining on your pursuits and your daily things. When you maintain a disciplined lifestyle, you are able to recognize you're doing things selflessly. But
Okay, I've got one question. We can both even answer this maybe. What sort of meditation you do to hear sound of Om, sound of God?
just breathe. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
There
What
you
sort
go.
of meditation do you hear? Sound of Om. So this is a really good question. I have an answer, Rahul. If you want to go first, I'll go first. Actually, if
I have more of a method, but
okay,
not so much of an answer. But it is. I mean, it is the answer. But basically, the one way to do it is just cover your um ears and
okay, we're gonna.
is that what you're gonna say? Um, but or you can use
Very, very, very similar.
or you can use like those earplugs, just basically blocking out any sound and listening intently, or even from because then you have to focus on the heart. Yeah, you're right.
Yes,
It's always
exactly. Yeah.
it's a sound of
No,
your
I
own
didn't
inner
think
self.
about this, but this is exactly right. So there's this idea I think it's an emerging idea among the spirituals about right frequencies, holy frequencies.
Oh,
I
like
actually had the privilege of doing yoga.
the
I did
teeth.
colonizer yoga. And they were playing Om, and they were doing it through a vibration, and they're using a machine, obviously, but you can feel it. You can feel it in your bones, that vibration. I got lucky because not knowing this, I was able to do that pretty well, I think, intuitively. And when I did, I led the prayers with Rishi on Clubhouse. I
Mm-hmm.
think people appreciated the way I chanted Om and just chanting in general, because you chant with that same energy and frequency. And when you hear like Pandits reciting the Vedas, they say it in such a way, you know? And that's why we have like ka ka ga ga ka. You feel
Mm.
the breath coming out. You feel that vibration within you.
Yes.
And you say things with such intensity and such precision that you feel that vibration within you. Oh, you feel that vibration in your
Mm.
lungs and in your chest and in your ribs. And that is what you're supposed to meditate on. That breath as you're doing it, but that vibration. I mean, it's all one thing, right? Your breath is causing this. So, I mean, what do you concentrate your mind from the outside world? Prana, hatha yoga, light, sound meditation. Well, these are different things, right? So,
Yeah. I mean, if you're saying Om is like an internal thing, and in fact, it's more internal than external.
sure,
Um,
yeah,
the only way it becomes external, but again, you first have to go internal, and then from the sound of Om, it vibrates outward. So
Yeah.
that's the only way it goes external. But if you're on about, maybe you're saying how to bring your attention inward, is what I'm maybe gauging from your question, is to do that. It's just, you have to just sit down, just sit
Yeah.
down and practice. I mean, there's no other
So,
way, like uh, other than, yeah, do some
yeah.
breathing, but eventually
So
just sitting down. The discipline, like you talked about, that's what it is.
yeah, but
Mm.
here's the thing. So a couple things is that when it comes to prana or your breath, pranayam. That's another word for it, I think. Pranayam. Um, but you are focusing on breath, right? And it's easy when you're sitting down. Not easy, but it's the first step. And it's more easy to focus on your breath when you're sitting and you're focusing on your breath. It's not always, and you have to forgive yourself. Your mind wanders. You come
Mm.
back to the breath. You focus on the in and out of the breath, the prana, the life force coming in and out of you. You sort of regard your breath as a life force that is coming in and out of you. And breath obviously is a life force in a sense. That oxygen is what turns. It's the most important thing. Um, Hatha yoga. I had the privilege of doing hatha yoga actually the other day. It was very nice, very fulfilling, and I kind of understood where you're coming from. In hatha yoga, it is very slow movements and breath work. As you move one way, you breathe. Same thing with working out. Hindus, we understood this for a long time, that when you move, you should breathe in a specific way. As someone who goes to the gym regularly, same thing. When you do reps, you have to exhale one way, inhale the other way. Yeah, how do you do your attention inwards, like repeating mantras, focusing on the breath? It's both, right? You focus on the
Mm.
breath and the mantra. So when you're obviously breathing out when you chant mantras. So when you breathe out, that breath mantra pronunciation, that becomes the main focus. You have to recognize what is the breath doing in that specific situation. In mantra chanting, your breath is literally producing mantra. That's what speech is all about. Vach is all about, is speaking. And so you're trying to focus on that pronunciation. How does that pronunciation vibrate your inside? How does that frequency vibrate your insides? And you work and focus towards that. When it comes to hatha yoga, first you're gonna have to learn, right? Learning is a long
Mm.
process. You're gonna have to be used to the movements. And as someone who's doing it for the first time, I was just following everyone's lead. There was no focus. My focus was on, oh, am I doing this right? What is everyone else doing? Am I in my positions right? That was my mind, and that's okay because I'm trying to learn the process. But as you get used to it and it becomes second nature, in the words of Stevie, the genius, in the words of Stevie, she says that yoga epitomizes Sanatana Dharma because it is precise movements and breathwork. It is yoga to its epitome. That same yoga applied to bhakti, that same yoga applied to jnanam, the same yoga applied to karma. You are doing deliberate action and deliberate movements in conjunction with very specific breath movements. And so once you get used to that movement, Tai Chi, same thing. Once you get focused onto that breath movement, your your attention is specifically to the breath because your subconscious mind will take care of the muscle movements. It knows it secondhand. It's muscle memory. So as your muscle memory understands the hatha yoga, the poses and the movements and the order and the sort of delicacy when it comes to those movements, your mind, your consciousness, and your awareness focuses on the breath. When does it breathe in? When does it breathe out? When does it breathe? And that's just discipline. That's just practice. You're learning a skill. So, and like I think even in breath work, you're not going to learn it immediately. It takes time and
Mm.
it takes, as Rahul said, discipline.
So do you have a living spiritual mystic to help, living guru?
Rahul.
um, you know what? The thing is, whether you have a living guru or not, I think first of all, it's important to know whether you're willing to be a disciple and learn. I think first of all, establish that there's no point going to a guru prematurely,
Yeah.
when there is no real
Ba-
maturity.
And bases. Yeah.
Yeah. So first, I would say study scriptures, listen, watch the Mahabharata online, read the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, like get to know those things. But I do believe that having a living spiritual teacher who is a guide, I'll use one caveat. that spiritual teacher should not have the intention of keeping you there forever. They should have
Yes.
the intention of telling you to go your own way after a couple of years. After you've done your thing, you go.
Here's my Yeah, exactly. And my thing is, just breathe, is that what the gurus of Sikhi taught us is that you don't need a living guru to learn. You know, everyone can be a Sikh, everyone can be a Shishya, a student, a Sikhi, while without a living guru. That the living guru can exist within contemplation. The living guru can be Brahman himself, can be God himself, the Guru, right? We call him the great guru. Because upon contemplation, upon meditation upon the Brahman, you can learn these things, and of course with help of others. Always help from others is important, but I don't think you necessarily need a living guru to start that path. I think once you want to refine your focus and refine your understandings, then perhaps a living guru that you can sincerely intellectually have a conversation with, sincerely engage in these yogas and practices with, to help you up until you're at that point. You can learn on your own. And Sikhi taught us this, that you can learn on your own. You don't need a guru from the very start. That the gurus are the texts themselves. The guru is the great Guru, the Brahman, and meditation and contemplation on the subjects. I think reading books from yogis can be our gurus. All sources of knowledge are our gurus. And so starting from there, and only once you need the very refined and personalized practices, it's like when you learn to sing, people can learn to sing on the internet all the time. People can be gifted with that. And then once you want to refine your voice and want to get to pitch perfect and be able to perform at a high level, then you can consult a personal coach. And it's the same thing with practice of jnana, or with yoga.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
So if you have a spiritual teacher that can help, good. But remember, you don't, like I said, the biggest thing today is go to someone that one has a track record of getting people liberated. Some people may choose to stay with that teacher. That's a separate point. That's their choice. They're doing it out of. That's not because they see their teacher some higher thing than them. They see the sameness. That's different. But you want to check. The biggest thing you want to check. There's 2-3 things. One, check if that teacher is willing to give you the truth instantaneously. If you have the potential to know it straight away, that they're willing to give it to you. That's one. Two, make sure that they're not charging you crazy amounts. Give your own donation, but do donate because you're taking their time. Three, just take a look at their conduct, take a look at their disciples, their surroundings, have a look, use your discernment, and then go forward. But yeah, I would say those are the few things I would suggest. It's because someone's big on YouTube, just don't think, or big on TikTok, doesn't mean that they are everything. Like they could just be giving good sound bites. And
right.
And so yeah. No, we're different. I was on about some other people. Some big shots. But yeah, thank you, Sue. Sue's awesome. I've been taught that thoughts move on the vital breath and there is no doer, so to speak. Yes, on the ultimate level, this is it.
What does they say? Avatu mam, avatu vaktaram, om shanti shanti shanti. Right? Avatu mam, me, recite the reciter, right? And the reason why we make that is exactly what you say. There is no doer. And so we present it in two different ways. The essence of me, and then the sort of body, the reciter. And that's to sort of reinforce this notion. It's the very first mantra from the Upanishads. And the reason why they do it is sort of to set the stage of the notion that there is a distinction between the ego and the Atma, that there is no doer, that the ego is illusionary. So it says, what is it? It says, tad mam avatu, tad vaktaram avatu, avatu mam avatu vaktaram. It's to sort of say, protect me and protect the reciter. We're creating a distinction there, so we can ultimately say that the reciter doesn't exist. It's just the mam, the me, the Atma. Yeah.
What sort of
What sort of inner sounds can one hear when if you have full concentration inwards with no worldly thoughts? That's for you to find out.
Yeah. And the thing is, just remember that sounds have a form. They appear and disappear. They're not permanent.
Yeah.
Therefore, you have to also transcend those inner sounds too. So,
And I would say the sounds are so, they can be so abstract, like describing a dream. So describing these sounds is like describing a dream. How do you even begin with that? And
mm,
even when you try to describe it, you're never going to get to its full accuracy. So ultimately, it's for you to find out.
yes. Yeah. And the thing is, like, even worldly thoughts, that doesn't mean that spiritual thoughts are more pious either,
Right.
because I would say just have no thoughts in general would be a better.
Yeah.
If full concentration is the absence of thought, it doesn't mean that thoughts disappear. It's actually the absence of attention towards thoughts.
Yeah.
So don't think that a no mind means there's no thoughts. What I would say is actually more of a, there's no identification with the thought. That's what I kind of mean.
Yeah.
Just preacher, you asking some very interesting questions.
Yeah. You guys, I have to go. I'm gonna go work
No
out for
worries,
a little
man.
bit so I can be there at 8. So,
No
but yeah,
worries.
thank you so much, Rahul. Your
Yeah, thank you.
lives were so interesting. I was like, I have to
No,
jump in after this.
no,
It's
no,
two
thank
pieces.
you, thank you, thank you for joining,
Yes.
and
Mm-hmm.
we'll see you soon.
Everyone, drop a
Uh,
follow, subscribe on his YouTube channel, get more
thank you,
updates, hit the notification. So,
thank you,
yes. All right. Bye.
thank you. Take care. So, thank you, just Richard. Thank you, Sammy. That was wonderful. Just spending time with you is always amazing. I always find that I learn so much, um, and there's always a lot to take in and absorb. And I always feel like I'm improving my life, which is what life's all about. So, and what are your thoughts on vegetarian diet and its effects on one's karma? So, in my opinion, it's good to be vegetarian. But again, in terms of karma, it depends how you want to see this. Now, if you're liberated, then the concept of karma does not apply. But say you're not liberated, say you want to reduce um, accumulating more karma, then people say be a vegetarian. But let's remember that um, even with karma, there's karma that creates more suffering or less suffering, or you want to do that karma that creates the least amount of suffering. So, for example, if someone needs to eat meat on their diet, then they need to eat meat on their diet, and remember, these things are related to the body and the mind. The Atma does not have any effect on the karma. The Atma, meaning Brahman, this Nirgun, this uh, ultimate and formless awareness, that does not accumulate, that's within us, that does not accumulate or have any effect on the karma. The body and mind will go through the effects of karma, and maybe diet will have an impact. But um, the one thing I want to point out is it's your choice whether to be a vegetarian or not. Um, the main important thing is that you understand that whatever action you do, because what's the point of being on a vegetarian diet or a vegan diet or a plant-based diet or any type of diet if we're still horrible to people, if we still have duality within us, if we still like harm others with our thoughts and our actions? What's the point then? Isn't that's worse in terms of the amount of suffering it creates? Sometimes when we say something, it may cause more harm and more suffering. So therefore, that is just as bad. So I would say diet is up to you. If you're doing some sort of yoga, that's up to you. I mean, I'm not vegetarian. I try to be more vegetarian throughout the week, but yeah, but I think you need to think more of our own actions in terms with other people, because until we get that right, nothing else is going to be right. And so yeah, but it's a good question. I really like that, and I appreciate the comment and question. So my thoughts really are: do as you wish. And in terms of karma, focus upon your reactions and responses to people. Observe your mind and your thoughts, and your intentions behind why you do things. That would be more important than a vegetarian diet initially, I would say. But again, your choice. You may find a calling to be vegetarian. You may have a calling to eat meat. It only has a relation to the body. What we talk about here, when we were talking about in the beginning, the Tattva Bodha, knowing who you are, what you are, that has nothing. What you eat has nothing to do with what you are. What you are is uh, cannot be changed by what you eat. Yeah, or even by what you say or do. Um, What's this guy say? I'm not vegetarian. I just choose to not eat meat whenever possible. That's good. Sometimes you're in a place where you can't. There's certain situations you're in that you can't. So I completely, yeah, no judgment. No judgment from me. And yeah, you have to use your clarity. Yeah, you have to use your a serene mind when you're about to eat something. But yeah, uh, but yes. Okay. Cool. So yes, but wonderful questions, just Preachy and Guy G and Susan G. We've had some really nice discussions. Out of 108 postures of yoga given by Ardha Yogi, which posture do you think is better for beginners? I'm not a yoga teacher, so can't really help you with that one. I think it's probably best to ask a yoga teacher. There's some really good yoga teachers online. I can even recommend you some who may be able to help you with if you're a beginner. But yeah, I'm not a yoga teacher, so I'm not really qualified to speak on these matters. But yeah, if you want to ask what I do, I just sit down and I sit down on a chair and meditate. To be honest, I just want to be comfortable when I meditate. So, um, so yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, you can sit in any way. My wife's a chef, so if she puts meat on the table, I'll be yeah. I just want to highlight happy wife, happy life, and that's how you live a life that is full of serenity and clarity too. So yeah, um, but yeah, I just sit. I don't do any posture. I automatically I do find that I may do a mudra like this, but yeah, it's not really a must. I mean, spiritual side of yoga. I mean, to leave body out its movement and its senses that leaves. Yeah, I do the child pose after I eat, to be honest, to relax me. uh, so yeah, but I do agree. Yeah. Uh, I mean, so those on TikTok, join my YouTube channel. Join my YouTube channel. It's in my bio, the link to my YouTube page. You can comment on there, and I'll read it out and stuff. So I mean, the spiritual side of yoga. I mean, has to leave body. I don't really know what that means. Okay, I think I know what you mean. So you're looking for a posture that will help you go inward, is what I'm assuming. is what you mean. But again, like, you can't avoid, when you're starting on your spiritual journey, you can't avoid your mind going outwards, your senses going outwards. If you hear a loud noise outside, your mind is going to go there. It's going to happen. It's all about creating that discipline. So what you have to do with the mind is, whenever it goes outward, you bring it back to the mind. So you bring it back to the attention of awareness. So every Saturday, so tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I don't know where you're living, so I can tell you the time if you tell me where you are in terms of the world. Just tell me the country. Um, but I do a meditation class, and in that meditation class, it's free. It's virtually on Zoom. Um, all we do is we go back to awareness. And yes, I do tell people that if they find that a thought is coming across in their mind, to bring the focus back onto awareness. Remember, awareness is there because if you are aware of the thought, if you are watching the thought, go back to the watcher that is watching the thought. And that's what I talk about and express in my meditation classes. I can't do lotus. Yeah, I find it difficult too because I'm old and fat. Well, I'm not. I don't think I'm old. I am getting old, um, but there's no way I'll be able to lead myself inward. Just sitting comfortable works well for me. I agree. I agree. It's just about being comfortable, because the less attention you can give to your body, um, and the more you can just focus on the inner work, the better, in my opinion. And a line spine does help. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I agree. Interesting. Sorry. Just there we go. So yeah, if you're on TikTok, join my YouTube page. The link to my YouTube is in the bio. So yeah, having an aligned spine does seem to help. So in the next one, what we'll do in the next live stream, we'll go through the six. We'll go through the six merits, the six qualifications. We'll go into that more. So if you have any questions, do write them. And then what I'll do is I'll end the stream at 9 o'clock. Maybe for the last couple of minutes, we'll do a little, some silent meditation, really. What is the significance of the number 108? It seems to pop up a lot in Sanatana Dharma. I'm not too sure why 108 is a special number. I do know that it's considered holy because it's a numeric of 9. So 8 plus 1 equals 9. That's the thing. But you know what? Let's Google it. Let's Google it. If you can't get an answer from the bearded mystic, you can go on Google, and Google would certainly give you the answer. But which answer you should find to be authentic is the most important one. That's where we have to use our intellect, our discernment. Normally, I would say whatever Sadhguru says is true, but recently I've had doubts about the stuff that he says. So, oh, it's even with Buddhism too. So Earth and Moon. Earth and moon, Earth and sun, number of chakras. I think you may be right. So the one represents the unity and wholeness of existence. I'm getting this from the Himalayan Yoga Institute, but I don't know. It's giving me some long stuff, but yeah. I think one that you said with his 108 chakras. Yeah, I think I want to find. I'll have to do some research into this, like looking at authentic sources. So yeah, it's got something to do about the creation and represents the universe and all our existence. So yeah, like as Susan mentioned here, this was quite true. It's the difference between the Earth and Moon, and Earth and Sun, and number of chakras. Yeah, it does have something to do with that. Even things like there's 108 Upanishads. Additionally, in the Sanskrit alphabet, there are 54 letters. Each letter has a feminine, Shakti, or masculine Shiva quality. So 54 minus multiplied by 2 equals 108. So, yeah. It's interesting. And it's got something to do with, okay, so as Susan mentioned, the distance between the Earth and Moon and the Earth and Sun is basically the diameter of the Sun is 108 times the diameter of Earth. The distance from Sun to Earth is 108 times the diameter of the Sun. The distance from the Earth to Moon is 108 times the diameter of the Moon. Lastly, there are 12 astrological houses and 9 planets. 12 times by 9 is 108. It is crazy. And how did they even know this stuff? And so if you're from England, you may know about Stonehenge. So Stonehenge's diameter has been measured to be 108 feet in diameter. That's crazy. That's crazy. So yes, there's quite a lot. Agreed with this one. Unfortunately, I do agree. I think I wouldn't like to say it's a complete fraud, but unfortunately, it's a whole line in the Batman in the Dark Knight. I love this line in the Dark Knight where it says, you either something like you live long enough to see yourself. You either die as a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Something upon those lines. That's what's happened with that guy, this guy. Sadhguru. Not with Susan, with Sadhguru. With Sadhguru, not Susan. But yeah, with Buddhism, it's got something to do with 108 lies, 108 earthly desires, 108 delusions of the mind. So that's why it's related to Buddhism. So yeah, it's incredible. So there we go. We've educated ourselves not only about the Tattva a little bit, but also with what 108 signifies. So that's interesting about the diameter. I mean, that how they know this stuff is incredible. So what we'll do, we'll end this session with some meditation. So until around 9ish, we'll just sit silently, just be comfortable where you are. breathe as normal as you want, and just watch the mind. That's all you need to do. Watch the thoughts, watch the senses, wherever the senses take you, just keep watching. And then when you observe that the watcher is being watched, stay in that awareness. That's all you have to do. So we'll do that. And that is a very interesting fact. Very interesting. So yes, so do this, and we'll do this for a couple of minutes, and then we'll end. And whenever the mind is distracted by a thought, bring the attention back to the awareness. Simply see awareness like the blue sky and thoughts like the clouds that pass by. No matter what the clouds are, how big they are, what shape they are, the sky remains unaffected. Likewise, your awareness remains unaffected by the size and shape of the thoughts and images and anything else. Be comfortable with the silence that is within. In yesterday's meditation, we did talk about how awareness is formless, soundless, limitless, imageless, colorless, boundless. Always go back to the beauty of that awareness. And then when you're comfortable, you can open your eyes and just to remind you on a few things that tomorrow there is a meditation class that you can attend. It's free. It's from 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can find the details in on my podcast. Even there's a WhatsApp group that we've created, and it's on my Patreon page where you can find the details for the Zoom link, but you can contact me otherwise. The other thing is you can support me on Patreon. That'd be really helpful. We got some interesting content coming out next week. Some a conversation with Yam Socks, and it's an incredible conversation. So do you please do look for you gotta look at that forward to that. It's amazing, some of the depth that's in there. Other than that, just like this and subscribe to this channel, share it with other people, and I shall see you next time, hopefully next week. And just look forward to seeing my I will notify people beforehand, like I'll have it up, so um so just look out for it, and I'll see you next time. Thank you everyone, you're all really kind, and thank you for making this live so enjoyable and magnificent. Okay, take care, bye.